All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
I'm Garrett Bergquist, government reporter for Wish TV and the producer of All Indiana Politics. In an exclusive interview with All Indiana Politics, Israel's ambassador to the United States tells me his country does not want to occupy Gaza long term, but the Israeli government does want security control over Gaza. Ambassador Michael Leiter visited Indiana on August 17th and 18th. Leiter was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and later moved to Israel. His eldest son was killed in combat in Gaza in November of 2023. During his visit to Indiana, he stopped by our studios here at News 8 to discuss Israel's post-war plans for Gaza and the hunger crisis there. We also talked about the death of a high-profile Al Jazeera journalist, the status of Iran's nuclear program, and whether it's safe for Hoosiers to visit Israel. And with us now is the Israeli ambassador to the United States, Michael Leiter. Mr. Ambassador, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming in today.
Good to be with you, Garrett.
So tell me about your visit to Indianapolis. What message do you hope to convey to central Indiana, including central Indiana's Jewish population?
Well, I had a marvelous meeting today with the Jewish leadership of the Jewish Federation and the Jewish community. I had about 300 people come out for engagement this evening. And tomorrow I'm off to South Bend to visit with the AM General Company, which we have a long-standing relationship with and connection with the Israel Defense Force. And I want to strengthen that bond. I'll be there together with Senator Jim Banks. And then I'm back to Indianapolis to visit with your governor and your treasurer, and that'll be the day's trip out to Indiana. Great state. I'd love to be here.
Yeah. Tell me about the vibe in those meetings. What sort of conversations have you had so far?
Meetings are good. I mean, this evening we haven't had political meetings. It was basically with the Jewish community. If I had a little bit more time, I'd love to get out to some of the churches and some of the universities here. It's a very short trip. I've got to get back to Washington. But look, people are concerned, but people are also very committed to Israel and to the position that Israel has in the world. I think people are very proud of the fact that together with the United States, we degraded the Iranian threat to not only the region, but to the world. And I think that despite the fact that many in the media, many in the political realm are putting Israel's back up against the wall and are convinced that Israel's responsible for all the ills of the Middle East, the majority of people deep down, certainly the American people, know that Israel is the greatest friend that America has, certainly in the Middle East and perhaps in the world. And we're deflecting a lot of this pressure coming out of European countries for immediate recognition of a Palestinian state. This is all nonsense. It's all, it's a little background noise, nothing more.
What exactly is the Netanyahu government's plan for Gaza at this point?
Look, the first thing we've got to do is defeat this evil. And we've got to get our hostages back. We had 255 hostages taken. To date, through both negotiations and military pressure, we've gotten 205 of those hostages out. There are another 50, 20 alive. They're being tortured in dungeons underneath the ground. They've been in tunnels now for almost 2 years. Those 20 we've got to get out alive, and the 30 that are dead. I mean, these people are ghoulish people. These are horrific people holding on to dead bodies in order to inflict pain and suffering and injury. So we've got to get them all out, and we've got to defeat Hamas. Hamas is a murderous organization that can't be allowed to remain standing. So the order of things is to defeat Hamas and get our hostages released, and then make sure this is the long-term plan. People who say we don't have a plan for Gaza, we're not the only ones. We've got to get everybody in the region involved in long-term plans, but our perception is that the long-term plan has to be that Hamas or anybody like Hamas, like the Islamic Jihad, anybody representing Iran, anybody representing an Iranian proxy cannot be reconstituted in Gaza. We need borders where we're protected, where our people are protected. No more jihadis on our border. That's clear.
Are there plans for a long-term post-war occupation somewhat similar to what we saw prior to 2005?
I don't think so. We don't want to occupy Gaza. We certainly have to maintain security control in Gaza. We can't give up on security. This is, Israel's a tiny country. It can fit into Indiana 4.5 times. We can't have anybody else responsible for our security. We want to take responsibility. We've never asked for American boots on the ground, European boots on the ground. We'll take care of our own security. But it has to be under very clear conditions. And one of them is that we are going to be in charge of security in Gaza. In terms of civilian life, in terms of management, in terms of administration, we don't want to get involved with that. We want our neighbors to come in with us, together with the administration here in the United States and others in Europe. Come together and let's create administration in Gaza, which is really going to serve the people and not serve Hamas. The people deserve change. Now look, they voted for Hamas, but I think they regret it today. So we have to give them the chance to reconstitute Gaza, to rebuild Gaza, like the President Trump often says, like a Riviera of the Middle East. It can be. I mean, it sits on the Mediterranean Ocean. It could be beautiful. It could be a beautiful place. But it's not going to be a beautiful place if Hamas or people like Hamas are running it. These people are terrorists. They're murderers. They don't care about the people in Gaza. And we have to step up to the plate. Once Hamas is defeated, there is a day after, and it's a wonderful day after.
Human rights groups say that more than 200 Gazans have died from malnutrition since the war began. Will Israel allow additional food aid into Gaza?
Israel has never not allowed food aid. This is a libel against the state of Israel. Israel is facilitating a surge, and has been facilitating a surge of humanitarian aid. The problem is that Hamas takes over this aid that comes in on trucks by various UN affiliate organizations. You can actually see these films. Unfortunately, too many in the media are not showing these films. But you can see them as the trucks come in. Hamas jumps on them, masked men with guns, takes over these semi-trailers carrying the food and take it to their storage houses. They give it out to their own minions, right, to the people that are supporting Hamas, and then they sell it to the rest of the population at very high prices. So people who can't afford it are going hungry. But those pictures of the children you saw, in most cases, in almost all the cases, these are sick children with genetic diseases that are being used, manipulated by Hamas supporters around the world. The picture you saw on the front page of the New York Times was a child with cystic fibrosis or cerebral palsy. He had a genetic disease. His brother was standing right next to him. He was a healthy kid. So what are we? We're starving just one kid and not his sibling? Of course. I mean, it's just absolute nonsense. And the New York Times is absolutely guilty of libel here. They cropped that picture. And this is the kind of stuff that's being shown. Look, the BBC, we counted this actually. The BBC has reported over the past year and a half, 88 times they said that hunger and starvation is imminent. Now, how can starvation be imminent 88 times? Either it's imminent on the 8th time or the 18th time or the 38th time. It can't be imminent 88 times. There was a report that came out from one of the UN directors just a few weeks ago who said that in 48 hours, 14,000 children would die of starvation. Well, that was just a libel against the state of Israel. Nobody died of starvation in 48 hours, certainly not 14,000. So if there is hunger, and there is hunger in some pockets in Gaza, it's not where Israel is in control, it's where Hamas is in control. Where we're in control, we have the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, run by a wonderful American minister by the name of Johnny Moore, who's in charge of distributing food that doesn't go to Hamas, it goes directly to the people. So that should be celebrated, that should be supported, not these UN rackets where 90% of the food going through the UN is being diverted to Hamas. That has to stop.
I want to ask about the recent incident in which 4 Al Jazeera journalists plus 2 freelancers were killed in an Israeli strike. The Israeli officials have claimed that those journalists had connections to Hamas. What evidence can you provide of that?
No, they didn't have connections to Hamas. They were operatives of Hamas, paid operatives of Hamas. Now, the fact that somebody has a job, I remember a terrorist attack when I was a youngster. And
well, Ambassador, what evidence can you provide right now to prove that those journalists were paid operatives of Hamas?
I'll provide you with the evidence. I mean, I didn't come prepared to the studio, with documents from our intel services, but I could prepare present that evidence. We have the evidence. And by the way, the story has died because we've presented the evidence. They haven't continued. Everybody knows that these are Hamas operatives or Islamic Jihad operatives. I remember, as I began to say, a case where 6 of my friends were killed by terrorists, and the terrorists who shot them and threw grenades at them were school teachers. Now, the fact that you have a job and you may be a broadcaster in a studio doesn't mean that you're not, moonlighting as a terrorist, or you're a terrorist moonlighting as a journalist. So we don't kill journalists, and that's a libel against the state of Israel. All my kids served. I lost a son serving in Gaza. I know what the orders are, and the orders are that we take every extent possible in order to prevent non-combatant casualties. We don't want collateral damage. We don't want anybody who's a non-combatant killed. And our track record is the best in the world. No army in the modern history has had to contend with 450 miles of tunnels. You know what the Gaza Strip is? It's 25 miles long and 8 miles wide. And it's got 450 miles of tunnel underneath that. That's the width of the state of Pennsylvania. All right? And it's managed by people who are not only willing to have their civilians killed, but actually celebrate their death, because then they can come and say, look at mean, cruel, ghoulish Israel killing civilians. So they're the ones that are responsible for their death. They're the ones that are responsible for them being hungry. We are flooding the area. We don't want to see civilians killed. And by the way, I'd say one more thing. Where do we have a precedent where people aren't allowed out? You've got a civil war in Sudan. They can cross the border to Chad. Gaza's the only place. If they come to us and say, look, we've got a visa to go elsewhere, they come through Israel. 40,000 have left through Israel. Egypt doesn't let anybody out. Why don't we say to Egypt, hey guys, there's a problem there, let them in temporarily, all right? Where do we have a situation where people have nowhere to go? All right, so we're playing into the hands of Hamas. And I'll tell you one more thing. When you've got countries like France and the UK and Canada, there's some kind of moral virus that's gone through the leadership of this country, proclaiming a Palestinian state unilaterally while they're holding our hostages. So basically you're suggesting to the Hamas, don't let them go. You're going to get a prize even before you let them go. At least if Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron would make it conditional, we'll recognize the state if you let them out. We still think that would be a travesty, because you don't allow us October 7th, where they murdered and slaughtered people, to be their Palestine Independence Day, right? Look, for 30 years, we've been trying to create a Palestinian state alongside of Israel. That's over. That's over. We've seen on October 7th that there is no two-state solution. It's not two, it's not state, it's not solution. It's the final solution. It's the end of Israel. Because if we put a Hamas stand right on our border, not only in Gaza, but all throughout 180 miles of Judea and Samaria, we're going to have October 7th again and again and again. And it's not just going to be in the Gaza envelope. It's going to be in Afula, and it's going to be in Kfar Saba, and it's going to be in Jerusalem, and it's going to be in Beersheba. We can't have that happen. So we have to come up with a mechanism after this war is over, and it's going to be over, and we're going to win this war. Hamas is going to be defeated, and our hostages are going to be released. When it's over, where we can raise the Human Development Index, where we can live side by side, not state to state, but side by side with our Palestinian neighbors, where everybody benefits, everybody raises their standard of living, GDP per capita goes up. Why in the world can't we have a situation where Haifa Port and Riyadh are connected with cross-border infrastructure, with everybody benefiting along the way? Jews, Palestinians, Jordanians, and Saudi Arabians. Why not?
I do want to briefly return to my earlier question. Now, the Committee to Protect Journalists accuses Israel of, and these are their words, not mine, but the CPJ accuses Israel of deliberately killing 24 journalists since the conflict began. How do you explain those deaths that they are citing specifically?
It is a travesty. Israel doesn't kill journalists. It's asinine. Look, Hamas rules the area. There's no buffer. There's Israel, and then there's Hamastan. All right? So anybody that goes in there, first of all, if they don't do it with Hamas's approval, they're endangering their lives. They're going into a war zone. It's impossible to identify them if there's shelling going back and forth. But in most cases, we're not talking about journalists that are going into a war zone. We're talking about Hamas that have taken positions with Reuters, with BBC, that are Hamas activists. And they're embedded with Hamas. Now, if you're going to get into bed with bed bugs, you might get bit. And if you're a Hamasnik and you're conveying Hamas's messages around the world, there's a chance that you're going to end up together with Hamas.
There were some reports that Israel plans to resettle some Gazans in South Sudan. Is that correct? I
think that, President Trump has talked about this idea, and I think it's a blessed idea. I mean, why, if Gazans want to leave, they just need a visa. So it's not a matter of forced resettlement. Just give the people the opportunity. If they want to live in Sudan, or they want to live in Romania, or they want to live in England. I would suggest to the leaders of Canada and Australia and France and England that are rushing to create this Palestinian state, if you really cared about Palestinians, offer them visas temporarily until Gaza's rebuilt. You're big shots. Come to the UN and say, I'm taking in 150,000. I'm taking in 250,000. Look, if they don't want to go, nobody's going to force them out. But Gaza's basically destroyed. The infrastructure of Gaza is destroyed. We are providing now, Israel, is providing the water, providing the food, is providing the sanitation. We provided polio shots for the entire population, the children population of Gaza during the war. Show me another country that did that. Provide all of the children in an enemy area with polio shots. We did that. There's no reason why we can't come to the international community and say, give the people of Gaza a choice. Let's come to our neighbors, Egypt and Jordan, give them visas for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years. See if they want to take the opportunity or not. Let them choose.
I want to turn to Iran for a minute. Based on Israel's latest intelligence, has Iran's nuclear program been destroyed as a result of those airstrikes the United States conducted, or has it merely been delayed?
The answer is yes. It's been destroyed. The President of the United States said it's been obliterated, and we don't get into etymology here. We take a stamp of approval on the President's word and say it's been obliterated. Look, Iran spent $500 billion developing their nuclear program. It's a nuclear weapon program. If you go past 3%, it's only for weapons. And you don't need to enrich uranium at all if you want a nuclear program. There's dozens of countries that have civilian nuclear programs. What they do is the nuclear material is imported under international inspection, supervision. It's processed, and then it's removed under international supervision. Iran can have that. But we all know the truth, that what they're interested in is a nuclear weapon. That's been terminated. They spent $500 billion on their nuclear program, and that's been terminated. There's no way on this side of the moon where they're going to be able to reconstitute that in the coming years. It's going to take decades and decades for them to be able to reconstitute what they had, and that's a result of the closest collaboration that's ever existed between the United States and Israel. There's never been this level of collaboration.
So are you saying then that the threat of a nuclear-armed Iran has been eliminated?
The threat of a nuclear Iran has been eliminated for now, no question about that. There's issues about, for example, material they may have hid. I mean, Iran is a bad actor. And Iran, in terms of the Iranian government, hasn't gone away. Their intentions are still there. If they can operate as a bad actor on the international stage, they will. Because they talk about us being the little Satan, the United States being the big Satan. They have a battle with Western civilization. They're out for the Judeo-Christian civilization. They want to terminate our civilization. Israel is the extension of Western civilization. It's an extension of the Judeo-Christian civilization in the Middle East. That's why they're so intent first on eradicating Israel, because Israel is the segue to eradicating the rest of Western civilization. They're a bad actor. Right now, they do not have the nuclear weapon highway anymore. They can't get there. But they're intent on reconstituting it. They're going to try. They can use potentially, dirty bombs. They can try to off-sell some of what they've already constituted to bad actors, additional bad actors, maybe terrorist organizations. These are very, very bad actors, and we have to be very vigilant about maintaining our surveillance and intel over what they're doing. They also have ballistic missiles. No, we didn't terminate all their ballistic missile program. And their ballistic missiles are intended to hit Europe and the United States. And these are very, very dangerous missiles.
Before we go, I do want to bring this back to our viewers, specifically here in central Indiana. Is it safe for Americans to visit Israel right now?
It's not only safe, it's the best thing I recommend because it's a life-transforming experience. You come to where Jesus walked, you come to where the Bible was created, you come to where the prophecies foresaw that the day would come when the Jewish people would come back to their homeland. This is a organic connection between the people of Israel and the land of Israel, and it's happening right now. There are those who are opposed to it, there are those who feel very uncomfortable about it, but you know the amazing thing about the people of Indiana, when they come to visit Israel, they don't need to buy a tour book. They just got to take their Bible with them.
Right. Michael Leiter is the ambassador of Israel to the United States. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for coming in today.
Good to be with you. Thank you, Garrett.
That was Michael Leiter, Israel's ambassador to the United States. Remember, you can catch All Indiana Politics every Sunday morning at 9:30, only on Wish TV. I'm Garrett Bergquist. Thanks for listening.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.